An activist is more of a lifestyle. I think. What is activism? Activism includes a lot. It includes having a clear knowledge on a particular topic. It includes being open to dialogue. It includes being in the front line. It includes organizing and constant education and broadening the space for a very important and critical debates to be had. That's the thing. Appeal to your principles or your values. If it appeals against it, I think you need to take a stand.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. Welcome to my channel. My name is Alberta. Today I have someone I'm very excited to have this guest. This is none other than Dr. Zita. Dr. Zita is someone that has a lot of energy. When you're around her, you just feel engaged in whatever she's teaching, whatever she's saying. She owns a charity organization where she creates awareness for girls' education. This t-shirt is from Dr. Zita's charity. So if you buy one of her t-shirts, you are donating to her charity organization. I will also let her introduce herself. I hope you enjoy watching the video. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Zita Seshie and I am originally from Ghana, West Africa. I have a Ph.D. in sociology and my research interests include education, gender and international development. So my focus is mainly on Africa. So that is like a bio about me. I do a lot. I'm passionate about community service and community work. I am more driven to inspire the next generation of African women. So my work tends to provide resources for young girls across Africa to be able to complete basic education. I kickstarted my first project in Ghana. It is my dream that subsequent project would visit other African countries so they can see somebody like me and be inspired to do something greater with their lives. So that is what I do.
Wow. And I'm sure everything you heard here will motivate you to do something. And another thing that really impresses me, sometimes we think, especially if you're from an African background, you think, okay, I'll get married, my husband, to someone who has a PhD, so let me just get a degree. But here you have someone who has a PhD, who is an African and Canadian, you know, and she has shared just a glimpse of what she went through in order to get this. It was not an easy journey, but here she is. And without wasting time, let's just dive into what we are supposed to do today.
Right.
Shall we?
Yes.
Okay. So I have here my yellow thing, which is very popular in my YouTube channel, where I get my questions. If I don't get questions from here, I tend to go all over the place, and we don't want that.
No.
Yeah, so I'll just stay focused on these questions.
Focused. Tunnel vision.
Exactly. So my number one question, what do you understand by the phrase silence means consent?
If you see something going wrong and you do not speak to it or act in a way that shows your concern, then it means that you are complicit. You saw something, you do not react, and that thing fundamentally does not agree with your principles and your values. So it's about, does the thing appeal to your principles or your values? If it appeals against it, I think you need to take a stand. But again, there are certain people that are not comfortable with taking a stand. But I'm going to wrap this particular answer up with a quote by Malcolm X. And he said, if you do not stand for something, you would always fall for anything. So it is important to make your voice heard and stand for something.
That's right. So does that mean that anyone who takes a stand for something is an activist?
No, I don't think that if you take a stand, it means you are an activist. You know, what is activism? Activism includes a lot. It includes having a clear knowledge on a particular topic. It includes being open to dialogue. It includes being in the front line. It includes organizing and constant education and broadening the space for a very important and critical debates to be had. So when you stand for something and you post something on social media or you use a particular hashtag, it does not mean you are an activist. You just stood for something. An activist is more of a lifestyle. I think it's a lifestyle, and it's a long-term thing. And so if you cannot sustain that momentum and continue over time, I don't think you should consider yourself an activist. You just saw something, you disagreed, and you decided to share your displeasure.
Wow. Oh, that's deep. There are two things that you mentioned here: constant education, because the world is constantly changing. So there's a lot of difference between racism in the past and racism today.
Right.
You know, we no longer have, at least to our knowledge, is that we no longer have segregation like in the 1960s.
Right.
But we still
clear
have
segregation with labels. It is. We do have it. But they are mixed up in different things.
Exactly.
You know, sometimes you go somewhere and they'll say, oh, well, thank you for your application, but you're not what you were looking for. You know, certain places, they block you out because of your skin color. And so I do understand what you're saying, but the beauty about racism and oppression is that it manifests, it changes. And so if you're not constantly educating yourself, you would not realize this is it. The racism in the 1950s were clear cut. So it says that colored people only, white only. So then, but right now, you don't need to, they don't need to write colored people only or white people only. You can just tell by the way, the kind of experiences you get in certain places to realize that you are not welcome there, and it is not a space that is accommodative of people of color. So it's just subtle, evolves, it's subtle, and it's more of unconscious, you know, form of segregation that people do not really can able to pinpoint. So that is the interesting thing. So exactly, constant education is beyond important.
Wow. Right. So do you consider yourself an activist?
I consider myself to be an activist, but not in the traditional sense. So I am not in the front line. I am not shouting in a microphone. I'm not organizing matches and debate. But I think that as a Black woman, to reach the level of accomplishment that I have is activism. My life is activism. My community service is activism. My compassion is an activism. My service to humanity is activism. So for me, it is my life, because according to the social norms and the social expectations, I am not supposed to be smart and do great things and have compassion for other people. When you look at the way the world sees Black people, you know, it's a stereotype. Usually it's a stereotype. So you don't want to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, like sociologists say. You know, you want to be something. So most of the time when people encounter me, they are surprised, you know. And so my thing is that my life needs to be the activism. It is not what I get up to do. Is that people look at my life and they say, this person is fundamentally changing the way the world sees a Black person or an African person. And that to me is activism, not the traditional sense of mobilizing and being out there and being in the front line and people knowing you that you are just passionate about this topic or this issue. To me, it's a lifestyle. And in everything that I do, in my education, in my passion, in my community service, I want to be excellent and be known that, you know, I have broadened or changed the way people see a Black person or a Black woman. That is my goal, to let my life do the talking.
Wow, I really love that. And your life does a lot of talking, trust me.
Thank you.
When you said your activism is a lifestyle, indeed. It's a lifestyle in what sense? One thing I've observed, you're so passionate about the girl-child education. That is very powerful. Because for instance, for me, both my grandmothers didn't have the opportunity to have a Western education, you know, and even in their cases, not my maternal grandma, but let's say my paternal grandma, it was more like, okay, we have money, let's send the boys. The girl, you know, she'll get married, she can get married to a rich guy and he'll take care of her, but the guy, he needs the education more than the girl, which is wrong, because you don't know the future. And I understand our ancestors, they didn't know better, they did what they thought was best, but today that's wrong. And considering how the world has changed, so I really admire that. And then another thing you just said here, you said the way the world sees Black people. I love that you said the world, not just the West, because even in Africa, Africans are not free. We discriminate one another.
Right.
My dad had an experience, actually, I shared with a friend, because my dad is a physician, and when he was back home in our country, we're from DR Congo, before the war, this was years ago, maybe even before I was born, but he shared this with us. He said there was a time he went to work in the bush, like where there are no doctors, and in the hospital there's no ambulance, they bring people in wheelbarrows.
Right.
That's where he went to work. As soon as he was done, as soon as he graduated, that's where he went to work. So he went there and he was working, and one day a man comes and said, I need to see the doctor as soon as possible. Now, in that place, they were used also to see missionaries. And in Africa, when you say missionary, the first thing is white people.
Right.
Yeah. So that day, my dad was the only doctor that particular day in the hospital. And the nurse went and they called him, there's a patient here who needs to see the doctor. As soon as my dad showed up, this is in our country, not anywhere else.
Right.
And the man also is Congolese.
Right.
When he saw my dad, he said, no.
I
want to see a doctor.
A real doctor.
And that day, there were high school students from Denmark.
Right.
White. And he looked aside and he pointed to the white kid from high school and said, isn't that the doctor? So long story short, he didn't want my dad to touch him. My dad was forced to give instructions to the high school kid so that the high school kid helps him, but he had all the instructions from my dad, and then he left.
Right.
But he didn't let my dad touch him. He didn't believe that a Black man like him could be a doctor.
Right.
But this was before even I was born.
Right.
So you see that mentality alone, and it's still present today in many ways.
Right. Yes, that's because race is a social construct. So that's what people need to understand. It's a social construct. It is constructed. It is not something that exists. So when you hear of Black people, it is a construct that is made, that people think of athletes or strippers or, a certain group of people, especially when you say it in the American context, people who are on welfare, who are not driven, that it's a social construct. It doesn't exist. The people like Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey are supposed to change the boundaries of how people think of race, but unfortunately it's not, So race is a social construct. It's just how, like in Canada, when you hear of Indigenous people, it's a certain mindset.
Exactly.
But all Indigenous people are not homogeneous. We are not a homogeneous group. Like, we are not one group that fall into this category. We are heterogeneous. We're different people. There are people who are extremely successful. There are people who are struggling and need help. And that is with every group. But people of color do not have that luxury of saying that, oh, we are different and they're really successful people. They're really career-driven people. We have entrepreneurs, we are doctors, we have astronauts, and we are just seen in a particular light. And so these are all social constructs and do not exist in reality. But because these constructs have existed over time, starting with slavery and colonialism, it is difficult, for people to see you and think that, oh, you are this. For instance, sometimes I know when people show up in my class and I am the professor, they are surprised, right? Sometimes they are surprised.
Because you look so young. Other than being Black, you look like a student.
Right, exactly. And I end up getting extremely good reviews because they're just so surprised, right? That, oh my God. And half of the time, even Black people are more surprised because they hardly see people who look like me stand in the classroom and be their teachers. And so these are some of the things I was talking about, that even within faculty across Canada, you look at faculty, Canada produces a lot of PhD graduates. All my friends I know who are Ghanaians, who are Black, have PhDs. But why are we not in faculty positions? And again, there is an article out that, you know, racism against black faculty and black people do not even get the chance to be professors in universities, and therefore if students cannot see somebody who looks like them, then how do they
They're not motivated,
right? And so it's just a social construct that these people are like this, and you just have to you know, use, I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video on a doll, and they said black doll and a white doll, which one is bad?
And these are babies.
It means it's a social construct. Exactly. People learn it.
The babies, they ask them, which one is the ugly doll? They pointed at the doll that looked like them.
Right. Which one is the bad doll? And they all point to the black doll as the bad one. So these, exactly. So I'm glad you mentioned babies, because this is to tell you that people are not born with, you know, racist tendencies. It's a social construct. It means they learn it. It is something that is constructed by society, and they learn it over time, and we need to start from that basis.
Yes. Thanks for the comments, the feedbacks. I'm still learning, and I did my best to just make it really short, because everyone is saying that the videos are really long. That's what's keeping most people from watching them, but I'm going to make it really short and on point this time. So,